new dance performances. Today we have Chris Standing, who is Dakota and Nihia from the communities Beardies and Okomasis First Nation, and Wahpetuan Dakota Nation. He's been a grass dancer since the age of 5 years old and is a big part of the Aboriginal music scene in Saskatchewan. Chris is the Visitor Service Manager at Wanuskewin Heritage Park and works at the Sasktel Center for the Saskatoon Blades, Rattlers, and Rush. Chris is here today to share his knowledge of traditional games.
All right, thanks. Amatakiapi, Dayan Wachiakapi, Yushkiyan Wachiakapi, Dakota Iya, Shunkawakan Umobnaji, Amakiapido, Wasichia, Chris Standing, De Miedo, Mitawa King, Wakpetawanga Shahia, Kahohe, Awichiakapi. I want to scale in Edchtawani, Saskatoon, Ontume, Tawa'i, Beeries, Ed, Omawapi. Yeah, it's a good day today. And I'd like to thank Wapahaska for inviting me into the conference. I'm still learning my language, and I'm learning about my culture. So I'm going to share the best I can today with the things that I was taught. So I'd just like to give a shout out to all the people participating. I know there's a group that's watching the adults, and there's a group that's watching the youth side. So I just want to shout out to my relatives and friends in Wapayton, Wapahaska, Tatankanaji, our relatives out and friends in Manitoba and into the United States. I also like to shout out to some of my teachers, my Dakota language teachers, my unka, my grandpa Sai Standing. He's an elder, veteran, and past chief out at Wapayton, Dakota First Nation. So he's a good instructor and teacher of mine of the Dakota language. Also, Joe Bendixson, he's a Shushukaduta. He's one of the instructors out at University of Minnesota, the Dakota language program. I believe he has a presentation, I think earlier today or maybe this afternoon. I can't remember. But shout out to Joe thanks for all your help, teaching me a bit of my language, at least the first couple of years and the first couple levels into University of Minnesota. And also Neil McKay, Chante Maza, out from Minnewakan, Port Totten, and he's been an instructor of mine too. He usually has shows on Wednesdays, or a Dakota class on Wednesdays, and I usually tune in. So if some of you want to keep learning your Dakota language, there's a class at 4 o'clock Central Standard Time with Neil McKay. I'll probably be jumping on that later, and he'll be talking some Dakota, some basic conversational stuff. It's really good. And also to my Dekshi Tony Tachin from the Sioux Valley. He lives out in Wapayton now, and I've always learned a lot of the language and more of the ceremonial language from my uncle there, Dekshi Tony. And my grandpa, or no, my grandpa for sure. And then my Ate Curtis. We always practice Dakota as much as we can, even just the basics. And Joseph Circlebear, I just started learning from him in a little bit, and he's a good singer and good elder and lots of good knowledge. So that's a little bit about that. I just want to introduce myself a bit. I'm Chris Standing again. I'm enrolled at the Beardies and Okomasis First Nation. It's a Cree reserve. It's my mother's reserve. On my dad's side, that's my Dakota side. So that's where I learned a lot of my Dakota teachings. Going to powwow, going to ceremony, some of the language, and even some of the games I'll be showing. What else could I say? Yeah, so on my family side, like I said in my intro, that I'm Wahpetuan, I'm Shahia, and Hohe, like Dakota. So I have relatives on that side too, and also have relatives that are Soto from the White Bear area. So I have relatives out in those areas. I lived mostly in Saskatoon most of my life. I've lived in Wapayton a few times and visited out in Beardies, and mostly just for cultural reasons and family reasons. But I've lived out in the res for a couple times, and but mostly living in the city. Bit of my background is, um, I guess I worked with the youth for a lot of years. Since I was about 19, I worked with as a youth worker at EGADS. I worked at the Safe House. I worked with kids in care, and I worked with kids in tours out at Wanuskewin Heritage Park. It's a cultural center just north of Saskatoon. And yeah, and I've been dancing powwow, a grass dancer, since I was about 5 years old. Traveled around, I guess, different parts of Canada, mostly in Canada, mostly around Saskatchewan, into the United States. In the most recent years, I'm trying to connect more with the Dakota reserves. Like I always try to attend Standing Buffalo when they have their celebration. Dakota Dunes, we have our powwow here. The powwow here in Wapayton, I get to help out with that one too. And no, I've been down to Fort Totten. My son has relatives down there, and Sioux Valley for sure. We go out there quite a bit, and out to Brandon Winterfest. Like I've been dancing for a while, so a lot of my teachings come from started out in that area, and then I started getting into ceremonies when I was younger, about 5, 6 years old. I've been going to Swat with my grandpa and my dad, and then as I got older, about I think my teens, my Dekshi Tony moved in from Sioux Valley to Wapayton. I started helping him out a little more and helping with the rocks and all that stuff, and learning the songs and start to. Plus, I met other people too. I met other cultural and ceremonial people, and end up humblecheing and sun dancing, and learning the ways of our ceremonies. And when you get to a certain point, you kind of feel like you know a lot of things, eh? But as you start to learn about the culture, it's more than just singing, dancing, going to ceremony. It's in our land, it's in our language, it's in our kinship, right? So there's still lots I'm learning. I get humbled all the time. Every few months, or every little while, there's some teachings that I need to work on as a human being. Nobody's perfect. Just because we go to ceremony, we're not perfect people. We go there to try and help ourselves. Plus, when we go out of those places, we still need to carry ourselves in a good way, and that's something I need to work on too. And there's things in my life I need to work on, but I still try to practice these ways so I can pass them down to my relatives, pass them down to my son, my nephews, and all that. So, what else can I say? So kind of after learning about powwows and ceremonies, started learning to set up teepees, starting to learn to sing a little bit, the songs. And in the last year, I really picked up the language. I started learning with Neil McKay through Zoom. Because of the pandemic, you kind of just sit around, right? So I've been learning the language through Neil McKay, and then I took a Dakota Language Institute course in last, I think, July, August for 2 weeks. And I believe the instructor was named Ethan. And I was already kind of met Shashuka Dutta and Frank Royal and these students that take a class out in Minnesota. So I ended up joining that class in the fall. And I've been taking other free classes through Zoom. And without the pandemic, I don't know if I'd be learning the language at this rate. So I'm learning basic conversational things, and it gets overwhelming because when you when you get to the next level of learning your language, it's really detailed, and everyone in different communities have different ways of saying things or explaining the language, right? So it's a really humbling experience. So I know I'm kind of going on and on, but I want to kind of get the context of where I learned these games and revitalizing our culture and all that. So yeah, there's so I guess my first learning about traditional games, I worked with this culture van out of Saskatoon. We had this van that goes around the city, and we practice culture and stuff. And I believe it was Donnie Spadilla taught us, what do you call it, double ball. I'll show that later and I'll explain it. And then I start to see moccasin games when I go to powwows out in Manitoba, especially Sioux Valley. I've been to Pipestone once. I was really little, so I don't remember too much of that. But I remember going to Sioux Valley. I always see moccasin games, the guys playing and hiding under these rugs. And I've been out to Brandon Winterfest. They hide them under the rugs. And even at Standing Buffalo, just east of Regina. And most recently, we started having them out in Wapayton. We're inviting all our relatives and friends from Manitoba and in the States, and they come and play. And hopefully our reserve too will start playing that a little more too. Start learning some of the games too, like I brought in Tim Eshoppy to the youth center at EGADS, and he taught the kids how to play moccasin games. And a really basic version is just to find them. When you really get into moccasin games, there's a certain amount of sticks, right? There's certain rules, and it gets really detailed. It's not just finding under the four rugs. There's details to it, right? But when you start out as a kid, you want to learn at a real basic level, right? And then when I started working on One to Scale, I started learning from different people, different kind of games, not just hiding games or double ball. That's a lot of the games we probably know of. But there's hunting games, and there's games that teach us survival and build up our physical skills. Games we played before, I guess, a lot of the sports we see now, right? So, could I say next? Oh yeah, some of my teachers were, again, Timmy Shoppy, Lamar, Glenda, Mary, Donnie, Tony, and I actually played moccasin games once. I pulled into a powwow out in Fort Totten about 4, 5, 6 years ago, and Cam Brown, I went to ceremony with him, and he's like, "Hey Chris," because I missed the grand entry the day before, so I just kind of danced, and it was like a exhibition. I was gonna go home probably Saturday. I was gonna hang out for the powwow for a little bit, and then I was like, "Well, I got nothing to do. Maybe I'll just go home soon." And kind of broke anyway. So all of a sudden, Cam Brown, he said, "Hey, my cousin needs an extra player. You know how to play moccasin games?" Like, "Oh, is that how you're going to hide under those rugs?" And they said, "Yeah." Well, I don't know the details of the rules. He's like, "Oh, I just need one more guy. You can just kind of help pick them, and maybe you can help find and stuff." And I ended up playing with Gilbert Brown, and we went on to the finals, and we won it, and we shared $1,000, split up 4 ways, and that took care of my whole weekend. So we split it up at the casino, and then everyone went back to Saskatoon, and I was so happy. I was like, "Hey, I played moccasin games." I told my dad, told my grandpa, and all of a sudden ended up playing again at Brandon Winterfest 2 years ago with our team from Wapayton. So we put together a team. I think we got 3rd place. Again, we got lucky, and I've only played it a couple of times. But hopefully we'll start playing it more and more, and I'll learn more about the rules, and we can start playing it, start having teams from this area and start challenging the guys from Pipestone and Sioux Valley, and well, some more competition, good competition. So, I want to get into the traditional games, right? So I want to put in context where my cultural and spiritual and language teachings come from, because we're all evolving as young people, as cultural learners, even as everyone's always learning, right? And you can learn from all kinds of people. So what I learned about traditional games, there's all kinds of traditional games. There's games that are for hunting. There's games of chance, like hand games, and there's games like team games like double ball or lacrosse or shinny, right? So a really basic game people have played for probably hundreds, thousands of years, like hide and seek. That's a really basic human game. Foot races, right? People run, they chase, right? Very basic games, but all these games help us build our body for something more than just fun. It's like for survival, right? We want to make sure we can be good hunters, good providers, and also sometimes defend ourselves too, right? There's horse races. There's games of strength. you probably heard of Indian leg wrestling, like you heard of that. And there's like hiding games, like I said, like you hide under 2 hands or under 4 rugs. There's all kinds of different games of chance. And there's knife games, and I want to show you this knife. I don't know if we can zoom in a little bit. Yeah. So maybe hold it right there, right there. So I'm going to just explain this knife. I got a little right up here, and I got this knife from Gabriel Lamarche, and it was made for me. I purchased it off him, and the blade is oil chert from Wyoming. The handle is bison rib bone from a wild bison that got that wandered out of PA National Park and was killed by wolves. So that's the wood, that's the handle. And the wrapping is braided porcupine quills dyed with wild berries and stinging nettle thread. And there's also resin, there's spruce sap, boiled and mixed with charcoal and grinded up with nettle. So this is kind of like a knife you would see before contact. Now you have all these kind of fancier knives, but knives are really important. They were important for cutting, for making rope, for gutting, for all kinds of things, right? And for our weapons. We could zoom back out now, and we can zoom back right wide. And a little bit about my background, people might not know. I have a background in Filipino martial arts, so I learned like some basic self-defense moves of, a knife, right, to how to defend. And so knives weren't just for cooking or for cutting apart an animal or for making tools and things like that, but they're also to defend ourselves, right? And everyone had a knife. Ladies had knives, men have knives, and as you get older, as a kid, you had knives. And there's games people would actually play, and I wouldn't encourage anyone to play them. Like, this is just for talking about. The games I'll show you are games you can play safely with your schools, with a culture camp, with different groups. But there were games where they threw the knife to each other and they catch it, or they spread their feet apart and they throw it, and you kind of play chicken until your feet are close together and someone just gives up, right? They're too scared. They don't want to get the knife in the foot, right? So, or people are pretty crazy. But that's a knife, and that's people used to do the flint knapping, right? They break apart pieces of obsidian or knife river flint to make the blades, right? For knives, for spears, for bows, for arrows, for things like that, for atlatl. Okay, so I'll show you a little bit of some of the weapons and why we need to get our skills up to make sure we're good hunters. This is stuff pre-contact, before the arrival of settlers. Okay, so I'm going to go off camera just for a second, just to pick up some of these items. So don't go anywhere. And if you have things in the chat, I'm not sure, maybe you can send them to Sheldon or Miranda. And at the end of my presentation, I'll take questions if we're still doing chat and stuff like that. So hang on for a second. I'm still here, just grabbing my weapons here. Okay. So we need to play games that build up our skills, right? And some of the weapons we had before, contact, for sure, was this knife, right? We had knives. I'll put that away for a second. And then we had spears, and we'd have a tip on it, right? And then a little bit of feathers. And depending on your region, you might have chokecherry, willow, different trees depending on your location, right? And you throw them, and you try to get the best spot of the animal, whether it's a small animal or it's a larger animal, right? And there's games I'm going to show you that'll show you how to build your hand-eye coordination, right? So that's a spear. And here just like a basic arrow. This is a modern arrow. Obviously it has like a metal tip and there's basic feathers, right? And you guys know what a bow and arrow is, right? It's bended, has a string, and it pulls this, right? But I'll show you this. This is called the addle. And basically this is a really old weapon and hunting tool. So basically it gives me a little bit more length on my arm instead of throwing it with just my fingers, right? It gives me a little more length. And you can make just out of a tree, you can use a tree piece, as long as you make a little notch at the back. And you can put a Y on it if you want, or you can just use your fingers. This one has a bit of bone, some wood, some sinew, and I think another little piece of bone. And you have your end right here, and you can throw it. It gives you more length. You fling it, right, like that. So these are basic weapons. So now we got to build our skills to be good hunters and good providers, right? So I'm going to go off camera for a second. I'm going to grab some more items. And we're going to get into, spears, spearing. I had Blue Jay as a demonstrator. I might need somebody in a little bit. Not right now, but in about a few minutes. So there's this game we can play that helps us build up our spearing. So, and you can make these out of pretty much anything. So you're basically trying to build a little hoop on a string and a stick, right? And you want to poke through it. You're actually practicing hitting, I guess, vital organs, to say on the bison or a deer or even a person, right, if you're defending your people. So maybe it's in the lung or near the heart, right? And for those of you who play Call of Duty, where do you hit the zombie? In the head, right? So here you go. And you can make it out of anything, right? Pretty willow, choke cherry, Saskatoon. I just got a broom handle for this one, and I got some tape, just made it nice and colorful so kids can enjoy it. They can decorate them any way they want. And you want to make your hoops sometimes smaller and smaller, and so the kid or the person learning these skills will actually get better, and it actually builds your eyesight. So that's one of these games. I just made this one recently. And all the materials, guess what? I bought them at Michael's. And I know for sure we'd if we're going to go and pick our own materials, you could use tobacco, right? You make an offering, and you make sure that you follow the protocols of your elders and what you're taught from your community, because every community has various different teachings, right? So I just tangled this one up. Oh well. Okay, now I'll try this one. And you actually want to try on each hand, because what would happen is if you were to break your arm or to hurt yourself, back in the day there's no 7-Eleven nearby, there's no Tim Hortons, there's no casino down the road like in Whitecap. No, just kidding. Or there's no Walmart nearby, right? So you still needed to survive. So maybe you can still pick berries. Maybe you can still hit that rabbit. Maybe you can still catch that fish, right? Or you can get something to feed your people, even if it's just something small. Your kushi or your aunties or someone will be happy you got something, and you can feed people, right? So, yeah. And this one is out of willow, red willow, and you could shave it off, and you can make it nice and smaller, or you can just get hoops. Buy hoops if you want from like an art store, and you can get colorful string like that, and you can make them really small if you want to, like that, see? And you actually want to make them really long, so you can practice on a really small little piece like that, right? I'm not going to try on my left hand because I'll embarrass myself. All right, so that's that game. And this one's called Stick and Hoop. And a lot of these games, like I've played these games, It's kind of weird doing this on Zoom and without a group. I usually have a group of 30 people, and I've done this with little kids, to groups that are from different parts of the country. Sometimes you have a translator, they're talking in Spanish or French, right? And you need to try to explain things, right? So Zoom is a little different. I can't hear people, I can't see them, and I don't have no one to demonstrate with, but maybe I got someone that can come and help me in a little bit. But we're gonna move on to the next game. I'm still here, don't worry. And yeah, I think I'll just need a volunteer just for a couple minutes. Oh, I got Sheldon Buffalo. He's the Apaha. He's gonna help me out. There you go. So Sheldon, there you go. There's some feathers there. So this game, this one you can play with kids, and actually, how you normally play this is you'd have a tripod. You can have a little small tripod, maybe about 3 sticks or 4 sticks, and you put maybe a little stuffed bison or something that looks like a little animal, right? And the kids will throw these kind of not eagle feathers, but other feathers that are okay with our protocols to throw. And even adults could play this. Sometimes people who play this game, they have a feather that has, actually I'll show you a feather real quick. They might have a feather that can fly long distances, right? And it teaches the kids like flight, aerodynamics, right? We're not gonna throw a feather like this, right? Because it's gonna fly all over the place. You might put a little weight on the feathers, and we color these feathers, make them all nice, just so kids can play with them, right? And they like different colors. I want the red one. Or we'll have 3 teams or 4 teams, and this team will be blue, this team will be green, that team will be red, that team will be yellow, and they'll all take turns throwing, right? And sometimes we'll move the little bison, right? So I'll give Sheldon 4 chances to try and hit this little bison. So guys in the chat, make sure you cheer on Sheldon Buffalo.
Okay,
here you go.
Can I go like that?
No, you're just gonna throw it.
Throw it from a distance?
Yeah, throw it from a distance.
Okay.
There you go.
So I gotta do my
3.
my Geisha, my war cry first?
Do your war cry.
Oh.
Miranda will leave for you.
Hold on.
Oh, missed. Come on, you got to be a good hunter, Sheldon. Oh, no. You missed.
I hit it.
I don't know, I didn't see it. Oh, Toronto Maple Leafs is just are out again. Oh, let's try again. Let's try one more time.
One more time.
Give him a round of applause if you're behind the camera. Yeah. Let's try one more time.
Okay.
And maybe try from here.
A little further. Okay.
Here we go.
Try it again. Well, I'm throwing these
There we go.
like they're darts, though.
Yeah, like darts is just exactly what that is. Yeah.
Got it. If we got to go to replay, then I'll call for replay.
Yeah, for you
Not just
replay.
that one. Oh yeah, I got him.
He got it. Great. So now we're gonna move to the next game. So we're gonna ramp it up a bit. That game gets you warmed up, and as kids, they really like games like that. So this next game, I'll get Sheldon to help me again.
Okay.
And this time, just hold these spears,
Okay.
right? And how this game works, it's called rolling. Like you just roll a hoop, and these represent small animals, right? We're trying to build our spearing skills so we can hunt animals. We might start as a kid bringing home a rabbit or bringing home a gopher or a bird or a fish, right? So with these spears, normally how you play this, two kids might have like a tall spear like what Sheldon's carrying, and they can chase them and pick up the hoops, like you roll them on the ground, right? And they can pick them up. And but just say if you're with a school group and there's like 30 kids, you might line up like say 3 rows of kids, and they each get about 4 or 5 sticks each, not too long, but just enough where they can throw, right? And you just roll them down like this, right? And how you score, I'll grab me the little one here. How you would actually would count as a point is it lands like this, right? Because if it goes through, you can't really prove, yeah, it went through, and be like, no, it didn't, right? Kids will lie like that, right? They get competitive, right? And that's fun. It's good to do, right? So, how we'll do this, Sheldon?
Okay.
You might have to stand right next to me, right here,
Okay.
so we're in frame so people can see. And then I'll roll these hoops, and you gotta try and get it.
Okay.
Ready?
So which one am I using? Doesn't matter?
Doesn't matter, yeah.
Okay. So do I gotta get into
Yeah,
or something or,
Yeah.
or just however?
however you want,
Okay.
yeah. Ready?
Okay, let's go.
Go. Oh, here we go. Oh, he got it.
Nope.
Oh,
Three.
he got one rabbit. There we go. So we'll have that for supper.
Ooh, stay low.
We'll fry it up at the Moose Woods Grill. But that's a basic game we play. It's I've heard some elders say you can play this with bow and arrow. I wouldn't recommend it with school groups yet. Maybe if there's like teenagers that are good with, they have their own archery set, and they want to make things like this. You just use red willow, or I know some protocols say you don't pick red willow at certain times. So if you want, you can go to Michael's and just find a really nice, bigger hoops, smaller hoops. Challenge yourself. You can put some tape on them, or you can roll them. You can get longer spears, or just cut a willow like that, shave it down, and you can practice your hunting skills. This is fun to play with kids. I haven't done this in a while, so I practiced this with my nephews a couple days ago, so that was kind of fun. So thanks, Sheldon, for your help. I'm going to go into the next game. I'll see if I need your help on the next one. Okay, I'm still here. I'm off screen for a second. All right, so this one I'll give Sheldon a little moment here. The next two games I'll need your help. So this game here is called Scream and Run, and there's what it does, it's a game where you have a stick like this, and people can decorate their own sticks. They can put a little colored feather, or maybe like a little ribbon on it or something, right? And how you play this game, and I guess the point of this game is to try to build your lungs, to try to build your voice, build your endurance, right? You're trying to be a good hunter. But also as young people, you need to warn the camp to say, the crows are coming, or the Pawnee are coming, right? Or whoever the enemy was at that time, right? Or somebody's coming, or the zombies are coming, right? So you're building your voice, you're building your energy, you're building your even for singing too. So how you play this game is you try and fill up your lungs and go and scream as long as you can and as loud as you can. Ah, right? But you run and scream, ah. Then when you're all out of breath, you stick that in the ground, right? So sometimes you can do this with just individuals. They can go and do it in a line, take turns, right? And you try and beat your own mark. You're not trying to beat the other kids. And when I play this, to say with 30 kids, to do it safely, how I play it is maybe have, again, three groups of maybe 10. And each kid, maybe we'll have like a group of 10 that'll start off first, and they kind of space themselves out like that, right? And you want to do it maybe like at a football field, or in a field, a soccer field, someplace where it's safe, where there's lots of room, right? And so they all run, 3, 2, 1, and then they're running and running and running, and then there's some kids that'll cheat, right? They'll go, they run right to the road, right, or something, right? So we all know who these ones are. Sheldon, usually. No, just kidding. So that's Scream and Run. If you ever get a chance, that's a good game to play. And if you need people to come to your community, there's myself, I know a lot of people that can come to your community, to your culture camp, and we can play these games with you at your school or at your soccer field, football field. Even in gyms, we play games like this. Maybe we might not stick this in the ground, but we can just stop, take a knee, right? So there's ways we can adapt these games. So I'll get Sheldon's help on the next one. And we're building another skill. We're building our listening and our stalking skills. So if we want to be good hunters, we want to be able to walk quietly. We want to be able to hear and listen, right? So when we take the kids animal tracking, I've taken kids at Wanaskewan to animal tracking, and what we do is we take a group of 30 kids and we go walking, and we'd stop after about a minute of walking, and okay, we're going to be quiet for 5 seconds. Ready? I'm going to put my hand in the air, and I'm going to take a finger down each second, right? And then try and figure out the things you can hear in the room or in the places where you're at, right? So 5. So here, I might hear a fan going or people breathing or there's vehicles running. If you're out in the reserve or you're outdoors, you might hear birds, you might hear animals, you might hear other kids or people talking, right? So you're trying to build their listening skills, but also like a game like I Spy. You're building their eyesight to see things, right? To see things moving. And what this game does is it helps you build build your senses. You're trying to build your senses up. So we'll get Sheldon to kind of blindfold himself, and you don't have to put it on tight as long as you just keep your eyes closed. So how this game works, I have a noisemaker, right? And how you play it is you take 3 steps, 1, 2, 3, you shake it. So there's a person with a noisemaker, and if you're with a group of like say 30 kids, a classroom size, they all circle around them, right? And you have one person that's blindfolded, one person with a noisemaker, and the person with the noisemaker will take those 3 steps, 1, 2, 3, shake, 1, 2, 3, shake, and the person that's blindfolded has to find that person. So let's see if Sheldon can find me. Just kidding. he found me. But you can play this game, and it helps build, I guess, your teamwork and stuff, and kids have fun with it, and it's good for your building your senses. You can take the blindfold off.
Okay.
And it's all these games are also fun for adults. They break the ice if you're doing team building and stuff too. So, thanks, Sheldon, for your help. How am I doing for time? I got about 10, 15 minutes left. Okay, I'll need is Sheldon still here? There's another game. Another game. This is a game of strength. Like, you know how we play arm wrestling or leg wrestling and stuff. And there's a game I heard and I was taught. It's really basic. It's just you pull a stick. And how some people play it, I've heard some people in the north, they actually grease a stick. And it kind of represents like pulling a fish out of the water. You got a skill to pull a fish out of the water because they're greasy, right? They're kind of slippery. So I'll get Sheldon to come help me here, and hopefully he's not too strong. So usually how you play it is you put one person's foot like that, and they hold that, and like 3, 2, 1, they pull. So you can pull it, and who will win. Sometimes you can play it this way too. I don't know if you can see it, but you can push, right? Like that, yeah. So that's a game you can play with kids. And you want to match up kids that are like the same height, same kind of weight, because you don't want people wrecking their arm or getting this. You got to shave this down because it can hurt somebody, stab somebody, right? So these are games you can play that help build their strength and their skills. Another game, I don't know if I can get Sheldon to help me. This is called, I'm way out of shape for this one. So this game here is basically like a hacky sack. And what you do is you put this between your toes, right? To my feet, and you sit down and you fling it. And kids will actually have a race to say if I have 3 of them, they'll have a relay, maybe all the way to an end of a spot. Or you can just see how far someone can throw it. So we'll get Sheldon to put that knot between his toes, have a seat.
Okay, do I gotta remove my shoes for this, or?
No, we'll just for time, we'll sit down.
Okay.
And he's gonna put that knot between his toes.
Like this?
Yeah, and when you roll back, you wanna tuck your neck, because you don't wanna hit your head. I've seen a couple of hits hit their neck. And then you just fling it as far as you can, yeah. And this game builds your core strength. You're trying to build your, right here, your back, your sides, right? So, and you fling it. Wana.
Okay.
Hey, right on. Oh, it fell behind there.
Yeah, I was trying to go for the ceiling.
So basically, you can get like any kind of sand, maybe some hide, but obviously we're using modern materials. So you can get stuff like a hacky sack or a 50-50 cord, some rope, some ribbon, and you can make this game. It's called Sling Ball, and it's a game people play on the plains. There's a lot of games. There's games in the Arctic. There's games that people share, and some people say only Dakotas play this game, only Crees play this game, or only Coast Salish play this game, but people share games. And I'll show you another game before we get going. I know Dakota's played these games. You guys probably know what this is. When we hunt the bison, we don't waste anything, right? We hunt the bison for meat, for shelter, for food, for clothing, for teepees, for tools, right? We use the skull for ceremonies. We use the hide, the buffalo hide, for ceremonies too. But even the male parts, the testicles, we're using a game called Double Ball. And it's okay to laugh. You could put a happy emoji or something on your Zoom call or something, whatever you want. But we just made these out of just say like a hide, maybe some tennis balls or some string. And you can use sticks, right? And if you ever play this with a school group, maybe you have a group of 10, another group of 10, and you have like a tripod or 2 tripods and a long stick, and you try and score underneath, or you try to ring a stick or over top. There's all different scoring systems depending on which region you're in, which tribe is nearby. I play this in the West Coast in Victoria, and the way they play it is there's a stick in the ground, and there's a stick on the other ground on the other side for that team, and you actually have to ring the balls around the stick. So that's the way they play it there. Some people play it with maybe just the women play it. Some play with just the men. Some have a long distances where they play it. And there's a game we used to play too. It's called shinny. Kind of like hockey, right? I don't know if I can see right there. Yeah, right there. Yeah, so like that. And we hit a ball or something on the ice, right? Or on the in the grass. So shinny, kind of like hockey, right? Or field hockey. And recently, Standing Buffalo, I know they've been playing lacrosse, and they've been taught by Jeff Shatler from the Saskatchewan Rush. So we're picking up games too as Dakota people, and we're sharing games as well. And the last one we all know about, before we get going, is moccasin game. We talked about it. Whenever you go to Sioux Valley Powell, or Standing Buffalo, or to Fort Totten, they have a powwow there. They have a moccasin games. Shakopee, they have a good moccasin games tournament there. So basically, I don't know the rules really good, but it's a basic hiding game. So just say if you're playing a hiding game with kids, you might have a rock, and you go like that, right? Is it this one, or is it this one, right? There's a basic game like that. Then there's another game where you hide it under 4 rugs. There's 4 of them, right? And then my team behind me will have noisemakers like that, or maybe a little shaker or a rattle, and they have songs. They have moccasin game songs that they'll sing, right? And they'll hide maybe like a little piece of rock or a little bullet or something, and they'll hide it on one of those 4 rugs. And you take a long stick, the other team, and they hit the rug they think it's under, right? And you have to win a certain amount of long sticks, right? Certain amount of long sticks to get a small stick. And then once you have enough small sticks, you win the game. if you're playing with kids or you're just playing for time, you might just play just a real short game just to have fun with them. And you know their attention span, they can only play for a little while. But as they get older and they mature, you learn the rules, the more detailed rules of moccasin game, right? And you play for bigger money and big contests, and the adults will play, the kids will play, the kids will make their own team. And yeah, it's really fun. You ever go to Dakota Winter Festival in Brandon, Manitoba, usually in January, they have like a big tournament. There's a hockey tournament going on, there's a powwow, there's volleyball. But if you go to the moccasin game area, you could just hear the drums going. You could hear songs going, and it just sounds awesome. And you can hear that whip, that whoosh, when someone gets they hit one of these rugs, right? So if you ever get a chance to see it, go to one of those communities and they have moccasin games. You can see it on YouTube as well, and you can watch some players play. Gilbert Brown, Cam Brown, all the guys from Chinooh, they're well known for moccasin games. So that's about it for my presentation. This is what I learned so far as a young man about my culture. I learned to dance. I learned to go to ceremony. I'm learning my language. I'm learning about these traditional games. I need to play more of this moccasin game before I learn the rules of these sticks, because you start winning a certain amount of sticks to get the small stick. And every time I learn, I forget because I don't play it enough, right? So usually when I play it in competition, I just kind of follow along and follow the older guys, right? So that's a moccasin game, and hopefully you continue that on. If you have relatives from your community that play it, learn it from them, and carry it on, right? So is there any questions or comments from the chat? Is there any knowledge keepers in the room that might want to share about the moccasin game, about double ball, shinny? Because I'm still learning. I don't know everything, but I'm just sharing what I did learn from the people who taught me, and I try to carry it on for our relatives, of my nieces, my nephews, the schools that I go to, the communities I go to, just so they can have fun. We can start picking these things up, and hopefully in their communities they start to find games that they have. There's some games that there's like a plum game, there's games of chance, there's dice games. There's all kinds of traditional games you can play. And very basic one we used to play is hide and seek. That's a basic skill you need for survival and for hunting, right? So any questions in the chat? Is there anything else before we wrap up? I think we have another presenter coming up pretty quick. If not, Dokshta Ke and Anna Pekte.